What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today what we're going to be going over is how wide receivers should be thinking during an actual game. This is a common question that we get asked. We post a lot of different drills, a lot of different, press releases, stuff like that, and we get a lot of questions from receivers asking, hey, Coach, I understand it, but how should I be thinking about things during a game? And honestly, the truth is, you guys, you can't overthink it. During a game, everything needs to be muscle memory. When it comes down to the press release that you're doing as far as technique goes, when it comes down to the break point, whether you're dropping your hips or cutting off of one foot, all those skill specific things, those should be muscle memory. But what you should be thinking as a wide receiver is about your pre-snap process and how you want to structure the route. As a wide receiver, you don't want to have a million things going on in your head. When it comes to releases, when it comes to moves at the top of the route, how you run your routes, I would say you probably want to have 5 to 6 different press releases that you can use versus different coverage looks, and then base those off of your routes and how you would run those routes. And that's what we're going to be going over today. So this is a clip from Brandon Ayuk running just a 12-yard stop route, right? Or pretty much a 12-yard stop. You could think of it as a curl, but we're going to play this clip full speed, and then we're going to break down probably what he is thinking and how I would teach wide receivers to think in this situation. So he takes the inside release, obviously puts the brakes on, and then finishes coming back to the ball. So let's talk about it. So when it comes to structuring your route as a receiver, you need to try to keep it as simple as possible. What I tell my wide receivers to think about when they come up to the line is 2 specific things. I'm looking at the DB's leverage, and then I am looking at the distance he has between me and him. And that's how I decide what press release I want to choose. Honestly, guys, there's really only 6 different press man or catch man type of looks where you have to come up with a release. That's why I say you only want to have about 5 to 6 press releases. You have inside shade press where they're right up on the ball. You have head up press where they're right up on the ball. You have outside shade press, and then you have inside shade 2 to 3 off, head up 2 to 3 off, and then outside shade 2 to 3 off. So that's 6 different looks that you can be prepared for. So when you come up to the line of scrimmage, you identify that look, bam, okay, I have a release ready for that look, and now I'm going to go get up into my route. So this DB's lined up outside shade about 2 to 3 yards off. So the key here is that we obviously got to attack his leverage. Make him think that we're going to the outside to try to get him to move, because we're going to take an inside release, especially on an inside breaking route like this stop route, right? We're definitely not going to take the outside release because that's where he doesn't want me to go. Wherever his leverage is to, we probably don't want to release to that side unless I have to. So I see that. Now I see that he's probably about 2 yards away. So what I want to do is I want to close the space with him, bring that line of scrimmage to his toes, make him uncomfortable, and give him a move to the outside, because that's what's going to get him to bite. But because I close the space with him, it makes it easier for me to do something called get skinny, which is essentially run right past his hip, which can allow me to, I guess you could say, sell the route more, help with the route spacing, but also maybe in some cases stack over the top of the DB. So that's all he's thinking about. The technique right here, you guys, his release, probably not perfect technique, but this is all muscle memory. He's not thinking about his foot placement. He's not thinking about where his outside foot is. He's not thinking about how to swat the DB's hands. All of that is muscle memory. Now, leading up into the break point, this is also muscle memory. He's pushing vertical. He's running his route hard. He's selling like he's running a fade. He's not thinking about selling fade. This is just something that he's repped out over and over and over again. And that's why doing drill work as a wide receiver is so important. And this is what wide receiver coaches don't want to tell you. It takes 1,000 reps of something to make it a habit. It literally takes 1,000 reps to make something a habit that in a game time situation, you could play fast and you don't have to really think about it. Then obviously his break point, he's thinking, he knows that he has to drop his hips, but he's ran this route so many times that he doesn't even have to think about that. He could drop on a dime right at the break point because he's done it before. What he is thinking about is how to structure the route, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to get across to you guys today. So remember, what we were looking for, we're going to show you a couple different examples of this too as well. We were looking for leverage, and we were looking for distance. So I'm going to play it full speed one more time. Great job by Ayuk taking that inside release, dropping his hips, and then getting separation from that DB. Now, this next example here is going to be kind of a unique look. It's a little bit different based on the route. So it's a little bit different than the first example from Ayuk, because obviously not everything is so cut and dry at the receiver position. It's not one way or the other. So there's a lot of gray area depending on the route that we're running, depending on the coverage that I see, etc. Now, before we break this down though, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback watching this video, we are going to be traveling out to 10 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So guys, if you'd like some more information on how you could sign up, go to that very first link in the description below. Our next camp is going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada. That camp is completely sold out. Then we'll be heading out to Seattle, Washington. That camp is also completely sold out. But then we'll be heading out to Chicago, Newark, Birmingham, Houston, Boston, Columbus, Boise, and Los Angeles, guys. So fellas, Want some more information, you want to learn how you can sign up, again, go to that very first link in the description below. We're filming this at the end of February. All of our camps will be sold out probably by the first week of March, you guys. We have very limited availability on all of these camps, so make sure you take advantage. Go to that very first link in the description below. We would love to have you there. Now let's get back to this video. So now, again, like we talked about, we obviously want to look at his leverage and we want to look at his distance, right? So in this case, this DB is lined up inside shade. It's good when you're watching film to be able to tell what shade the DB is. You want to look at the middle of his stance. If his feet are kind of like, I guess you could say like outside of my front foot or my inside foot, that means he's inside leverage. If his feet are like outside of my outside foot, that means he's outside leverage, right? So this is inside shade, and he's probably about like 2 to 3 yards off. Now, the thing that makes this different is this wide receiver has to run a slant, right? So it's a little bit different because a slant route, you can't work to stack. It's not necessarily like a release where it's not like the 12-yard stop route. If he was running that 12-yard stop that we showcased in the last example, what he would do is he would close the space with the DB, attack his leverage to the inside, release outside to 12, and then put the brakes on right there. Now, since it's a slant, that kind of changes up what we're doing. Again, you want to have about 5 to 6 releases that could go versus different coverage looks, but it works with the routes that you run. There are a lot. It's very rare, especially if you're a high school or youth receiver watching this, where you're running like 12 different routes. You probably have about like 4 to 5 routes that you tend to run at the high school or like middle school level, and you want to be perfect at all 5 of those, and you want to have releases that could work for all 5 of those. So this receiver works something here called a slide release, and a slide release is a great way to get separation versus an inside shade catch technique DB when you have to run a slant. Because like what we can't do, because it's like a 3-step slant, right? What we can't do is give him a move inside, outside release, and stack him, and then break to the slant. If it was a post route, because the post route is to 10, yeah, I have time to do that because I have 10 yards to be able to get over the top and stack him. But because it's a slant, I don't got that luxury. So what I want to do is I want to attack his outside shoulder and outside hip and make him think I'm going vertical. And that slide release is a great way to do that. This slide where he comes off the ball when he slides to the outside, this is something that he has pre-planned. This is a release that he is comfortable with. He could use this if he's running a fade route, and he's probably used it before. This DB's inside shade, we slide to the outside, then go take off, right? So he's thinking that when he comes up to the ball. He's like, okay, I could use a slide release. Like, let's say going into this game, the 5 releases he wants to use. He wants to use a slide and go. He wants to use like a slide and a quick jab outside and take the inside release. He wants to use a slide and then a crossover and run a slant. And then maybe he wants to use a slide and then a crossover the opposite way and go run a fade. That's 4 releases right there he could use. So going into this game, when he sees this look and he knows he has to run a slant route, he's thinking, all right, I'm going to slide. I'm going to make him think because of the tempo of my slide that I'm going to the outside, that I'm trying to run this slide and go, put the brakes on, and I run this slant. So he's not thinking about the mechanics of the slide. He's not thinking about the tempo of the slide. That's muscle memory. But what he is thinking about is how he should structure it and why he should use it. So I hope that makes sense, fellas. This is another good example, how to run a slant versus inside shade press and what a wide receiver should be thinking right there. Now, next example here. This is going to be from Puka Nacua. And he is running a like 10 to 12 yard out route versus a DB who's outside shade in zone coverage, right? So again, now let's talk about zone, because as a wide receiver, like it's not always going to be press. We talk a lot about releases. We talk a lot about what you should do, but it's not always going to be that look. Sometimes we're going to have zone coverage. And so when we have to run a 10 yard out and I have a DB who's lined up outside leverage zone coverage or even off man coverage, I know that because he's outside leverage, he doesn't want me to run to the outside. So I'm probably not going to be able to just get around him, because the second I angle my stem here, he's going to widen himself and protect his leverage. And then my out route's going to be right into him, and it's going to be right on the sideline. So what I want to do is, instead of forcing it, I want to go right at his inside shoulder and right at his inside hip. And so what you want to do on that is you want to sell vertical. You want to make him think that you're pushing vertical, pushing fade, try to get him to open up like we do right here, and then we cut underneath him and have all of this space. So guys, it's all about understanding leverage and understanding what the DB is trying to do. Now, I'd be lying to you if I said that all these wide receivers are just making this up on the fly. They study a ton of film. They are prepared. They know what a defense likes to come out in before they even start the game. So going into this game, Nacua, I guarantee you, probably watched a ton of film on the DBs that he's going to be matched up against. And he probably was like, okay, they love to play inside shade press. They love to play outside leverage zone. So the routes that I'm running this week are a lot of out routes, fade routes, post routes, whatever the case may be. So he's preparing himself. He's thinking, okay, what release do I like versus this? Okay, I'm comfortable with this release. That could work here. When he's outside leverage like this and I have to run my out route, this is how I'm going to run that route. And they rep it out in practice. So when they get into a game, it's a habit. It's bam. Okay, I see that look. That's how I'm going to attack the route. Can a DB change up what he's doing? Absolutely. But guys, you have to study film. You have to have that plan pre-thought out. It needs to be a pre-game plan, pre-snap plan, and you have to be able to execute. All the cuts, all the footwork, all the stuff like that is all muscle memory once you get to this point in an actual game. But this is what you should be thinking about. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple and have those 5 to 6 things that you like to use.